My family thought I was an easy target, until the loser they underestimated became the billionaire founder of a security empire. I, 42, am CEO and founder of one of the world's largest private security technology firms, grew up the loser of my family. Not because I was a delinquent or a failure, but because I dared to pursue what they deemed a childish hobby, computers and technology, instead of joining the family's real estate empire. My father, a man whose handshake was his bond and whose bond was worth millions, had a very clear path for me. Georgetown Law, then the firm. When I pivoted to a degree in electrical engineering, the Cold War started. Engineering? Are you going to fix the refrigerators, son? My older brother, B, 47, M, the golden boy, had asked with a laugh that stung, the kind that drew attention at the Thanksgiving table. He'd already secured his spot, heir apparent, the son who understood the value of a solid brick-and-mortar foundation, not some ephemeral code. My mother, 70, F, was subtler, but just as damaging. She'd introduce me as my youngest, the technologist. Bless his heart. I took the insults, the condescension, the constant low-level dismissal, and I buried myself in my work. The company I founded after I graduated, Aegis Systems, wasn't just a business. It was a fortress built on the rejection I felt every day. For the first 10 years, I lived and breathed it, pouring every cent of seed money and every ounce of my focus into developing proprietary, next-generation threat detection and access control systems. While B was celebrating another high-rise acquisition, I was landing multi-million-dollar contracts with government facilities and Fortune 500 companies. I kept my head down, lived relatively modestly, and kept my success a secret from them. I wanted the work to speak, not my wallet. The whole dynamic came to a head 4 years ago, right when Aegis Systems was poised for a major IPO that would value us in the 10-figure range. My father had a sudden, massive heart attack. It was devastating, not just for the loss, but for the immediate, ugly chaos that followed. The will reading was a scene ripped from a bad movie. My father, a man of meticulous order, had left B the keys to the kingdom, 60% of the real estate firm, outright. The remaining 40% was split between B, our sister S, 45, F, and me. But there was a catch, a clause that triggered immediate dissolution and division of assets if the controlling interest holder, B, was proven to have committed willful gross negligence leading to a material loss for the company. A standard corporate protection, but one that felt like a subtle warning to B. Then came my part. My father had left me the small, dilapidated property he'd bought decades ago, an old industrial warehouse downtown, completely unsuited for commercial real estate, a piece of junk property. The lawyer, a stoic man who'd seen it all, coughed slightly, reading the exact words. To my son, I leave the property at 410 Commerce Street. It is a reminder that value is found not in its initial appearance, but in the ingenuity applied to it. B erupted. A warehouse? The loser gets the dump. Fitting. The firm is worth $3 billion, and he gets a property tax headache. I just nodded, thanked the lawyer, and walked out. B's reaction was textbook entitlement. He had everything, yet the small, symbolic gift to me, even if it was a warehouse, was an affront. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that 410 Commerce Street, that dump, wasn't just a property. It was the original, legal address of Aegis Systems. I had kept it in my father's name as a silent, sentimental tribute to the small loan he'd once given me, an investment he had long forgotten. It was where the first line of code for Aegis was written. More importantly, under a complex corporate real estate structure, Aegis had a 99-year lease on that property, signed with a shell corporation I owned, that stipulated an immediate, one-time, $500 million buyout option if the property's ownership ever passed out of my father's direct control to a third party. My father had signed that lease years ago, amused by the play-acting business terms I'd drafted. He thought it was a joke contract. I thought of it as my escape fund. The third party was B. The real conflict began 2 months later. B started calling, not to mourn, but to manage. He needed cash flow for a new mega-development that was draining the firm's liquidity. Listen, little brother, he drawled over the phone. That warehouse you got? It's sitting on prime land. I'll take it off your hands for market rate. 5 million. I smiled. It's not for sale, B. It has sentimental value. Sentimental? Are you serious? You're sitting on a dust collector while the firm needs to move capital. Be a man, I help the family. I am helping the family, I replied smoothly, by holding on to my assets. B's tone hardened. This was the first act of entitlement, the expectation that I, the loser, would roll over. He saw my refusal as a personal slight, an obstacle to his immediate need for cash and space. The next thing I heard wasn't a call, but a legal document. B, using his power as the executor of the estate and the majority owner of the family firm, had filed a petition in the local probate court to challenge the distribution of the estate, specifically targeting the 410 Commerce Street property. His argument was a piece of brazen entitlement. My father's mental acuity was compromised in his final months, and the warehouse distribution was an oversight or unintended consequence that benefited me unfairly, given my minimal involvement in the family business. He was alleging undue influence, a claim that was legally complex and emotionally charged, designed to drag my name through the mud and force a settlement. I immediately brought in my firm's chief legal officer, a sharp corporate attorney named David. David laughed when he saw B's filing. He thinks he's playing poker with a paper hand. He's going after a specific bequest, a clear, written instruction. Unless he has a notarized, contemporaneous letter from your father stating he was delusional, this is a fishing expedition that will cost him 6 figures in legal fees. Let him fish, I said. I'm not interested in settlements. I want him to know what it feels like to be underestimated. B's second move was dirtier. He used his connections at the City Planning Commission to initiate a surprise inspection of the 410 Commerce Street property, alleging zoning violations and structural issues that he claimed were an environmental hazard. The goal was clearly to tie up the property in red tape, devalue it, and force me to sell it to him at a rock-bottom price just to avoid the fines. This was a classic dirty trick from the old real estate playbook. The timing, however, was B's biggest mistake. This surprise inspection landed on the desk of a city official who was an old college acquaintance of mine and a new client of Aegis Systems, whose facilities we were currently upgrading. The official called me directly. He said, slightly panicked. Your brother is pushing a violation notice on 410 Commerce. It's thin, but the pressure is serious. You have permits for the, modifications you've made. Tell him to send the inspectors, I said calmly. And make sure the lead inspector is the most meticulous, process-oriented person you have. The building is a technological marvel, not a hazard. The inspection took 3 days. It wasn't just a warehouse. It was a hardened, state-of-the-art facility, a silent data center and high-security lab for Aegis, shielded with advanced countermeasures and built to withstand a small-scale siege. Every permit, every code, every inch was compliant, often exceeding compliance. My brother's attempt at regulatory sabotage failed spectacularly, resulting only in a clean bill of health and an official note of excellence for facility security design from the city. The failure of the zoning trick only fueled B's entitlement. He couldn't grasp that I, the loser, could own something valuable, or that I had the connections to neutralize his schemes. He escalated the probate case, filing an aggressive motion for discovery, demanding I produce financial records, communication logs, and personal correspondence with my father, trying to manufacture evidence of my undue influence, or, failing that, just bleed me dry with legal expenses. This was the opening I needed. My attorney, David, advised me to comply fully, but strategically. You're fighting a small battle on his terms, David said. We're going to use this discovery to launch a nuclear counterclaim. He wants financials? He gets financials. Our financials. I knew B's firm, the family real estate empire, had a history of aggressive, borderline legal accounting. David and I began our deep dive, not into B's personal life, but into the financial health of the firm he now controlled. We leveraged my own technological resources, proprietary AI algorithms designed for financial fraud detection, originally built for a government agency, to comb through the decades of publicly available SEC filings, internal company leaks, and B's own firm's quarterly reports. It took 3 weeks. What we found was far worse than standard real estate corner cutting. B, in his rush to fund the new megadevelopment, had entered into a series of highly questionable, high-interest, short-term commercial loans against the firm's existing, stable assets. Furthermore, the internal auditing reports revealed a pattern of shell corporations and inflated appraisals designed to mask the firm's rapidly deteriorating liquidity. The company was leveraged to the hilt, and B's decision to commit to the massive new project was a financial time bomb. He was, in effect, driving the company toward a precipice, a clear case of gross negligence that would cause a material loss for the company. Crucially, his aggressive probate claim gave us the legal standing to introduce this evidence. B was arguing I was unfit to inherit a small warehouse. I would argue he was unfit to inherit the entire company. The first major confrontation took place not in the courtroom, but in the sterile, air-conditioned silence of David's office during a mandatory mediation session. It was B.S., his attorney, me, and David. B leaned back, smirking.
Look,
The legal fees are killing us both. Just sign over the warehouse, and I'll drop the probate nonsense. We're family. Family? I repeated. You tried to use the city to issue fraudulent violations on my property to devalue it. That's not family, B. That's a textbook malicious act. And by the way, B, I added, holding up a dense 5-page document. You know the property you want so badly? For 10 Commerce Street? You know its true value.
B scoffed.
5 million, maybe 6 on a good day. I slid the document across the table. It was the original 99-year lease agreement, signed by my father, with a $500 million buyout clause triggered by a change in direct ownership. It's worth $500 million, B.
To me.
Or to the company that legally occupies it, Aegis Systems. B's face went white. His attorney snatched the document, reading it rapidly, his composure cracking with every paragraph. He looked up at B with panic. B, this is a legally executed commercial lease. It's solid. Aegis Systems? B sputtered, staring at me. The technology company? You run that company? The one they talk about on CNBC. The one in the same, I confirmed. $1 billion IPO next quarter. I'm not the loser, B. I'm the majority shareholder of the entity that can legally force you to sell me the property for $500 million. But I wasn't done with B's entitlement. I wasn't going to just buy the property. I was going for the crown jewel. Now, let's talk about the family firm. I continued, leaning forward. My counterclaim won't be about the warehouse, B. It'll be about your fitness to run the business. B's attorney interrupted. That's outside the scope of the probate case, Mr. I. Is it? I challenged. The clause in the will states, division of assets if the controlling interest holder is proven to have committed willful gross negligence leading to a material loss for the company. We have evidence, B, not just conjecture, but financial forensics that show you've leveraged the firm past the point of solvency to fund your pet project, a project that is already hemorrhaging cash. That's a material loss in the making, and it's textbook gross negligence. B, completely unnerved, tried one last act of entitlement, turning to our sister S. Tell him he has to back down for the family name. He's crazy. S looked at B, then at me. She had always stayed neutral, a quiet observer of the hierarchy. Now, she finally spoke, her voice measured. B, you tried to steal from him. You called the boy who built a billion-dollar company a loser for decades. What do you want to do? The climax was now. I'm not dropping the counterclaim, I stated firmly. My father's assets are protected, but the firm he built is not. I'm petitioning the court to trigger the wills clause, remove B as the controlling interest holder, and demand an immediate, court-ordered, third-party audit and liquidation of the firm's assets. B stood up, overturning his chair, his face crimson. You can't. You're destroying everything. You're a child. I'm an adult, I corrected him. Who is about to save the remaining equity you haven't destroyed? The difference between us, B is you think success is entitlement, and I know it's security. And now, Aegis Systems is going to secure the family legacy from the person who thought I was an easy target. The legal battle that followed was brutal but swift. My evidence of B's financial maneuvering was irrefutable. The short-term loans, the inflated valuations, the sheer leverage, it all pointed to a man who, in a desperate cash grab, had recklessly endangered the entire company. The probate court, dealing with the will, decided that B's actions warranted a review of the will's contingent clauses. This kicked off a separate, accelerated corporate litigation process. Within 9 months, the court ruled. The judgment B was found to have committed willful gross negligence and was immediately removed as the controlling interest holder of the family firm. The will's clause was triggered. The firm's assets were liquidated and divided among the remaining heirs. The real estate empire, the legacy B had taken for granted, was gone. These assets were wiped out not just by the liquidation, but by the civil suits filed by the lenders who had been defrauded by the inflated valuations he presented. He lost everything. He, the golden boy, ended up with barely a fraction of what he thought was his birthright. As for me, I received my final 40% share from a liquidation, a tidy sum that, combined with the successful IPO of Aegis Systems, cemented my financial position. I executed the $500 million buyout on 410 Commerce Street, making the headquarters legally mine, and paid the amount into the remaining estate assets, further securing S's portion. The final, deeply satisfying consequence came 2 years later. Aegis Systems, needing a new, high-profile corporate headquarters in the city center, purchased the massive, half-finished new mega-development site B had bankrupted the family firm to start. We tore down his half-built, debt-ridden symbol of entitlement and replaced it with the gleaming, secure Aegis Tower, a monument to the loser who built his own foundation. The irony was a kind of justice only money could buy. I haven't spoken to B since the judgment. My mother and S now see me differently, the respect hard-won but real. They understood, finally, that the real value wasn't in the bricks, but in the mind that secured them. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy, it's simply building a better fortress. If you enjoyed this little tale of a comeback, smash that subscribe button. It's the only security system against a boring feed.